Hey, SOTA operators! Have you ever spent the day climbing a mountain only to find that you can't get spotted because there's no cell service? Do you wish you could send a text message from a remote location, but you don't have a satellite communicator device? SOTAmate can do both with just an app and your HF radio. SOTAmate is a set of web and mobile tools for licensed amateur radio operators who are participating in SOTA, the Summits on the Air program. If you don't know about SOTA, it combines amateur radio with climbing mountains into a fun, awards-based activity. Outside Magazine has a good introduction to SOTA. A common problem for mountain activators is, how do you get spotted by chasers at home? And there's several traditional methods. The first, most common, is to use an app like SOTAgoat, but that requires cell data service, which often isn't available in the mountains. The second way is to use an SMS gateway, but it too requires cell service. The third way is to use APRS, but it isn't reliable when you get away from urban areas, and you might need to carry an extra radio. The fourth way is to use a satellite device like a Garmin InReach, but you have to pay for the device and for an ongoing subscription, plus there's other configuration work. The fifth way is to self-spot with RBNhole, but you need to know Morse code to use it, and you have to post an alert ahead of time, and that requires internet access, and that you have an approximate time when you expect to reach the summit, which you don't always know. The sixth way is JS8 call, but that requires a computing device, like a Raspberry Pi, and an appropriate power source, and possibly other items, like a GPS dongle as a time source. SOTAmate is a new way to send messages, to self-spot, and to perform other functions using the HF equipment you already have when you don't have cell service. You do this by transmitting your call sign with a special suffix that encodes your instructions for the SOTAmate server to execute. You can transmit with any mode that is supported by the thousands of PSK reporter monitoring stations spread worldwide. SOTAmate connects to PSK reporter and listens for your messages, whether they were sent with FT8, PSK, CW, or any mode that has monitoring stations feeding the sender's call sign and suffix into PSK reporter. Now, I find that FT8 is the most foolproof mode due to the numerous monitoring stations and weak signal performance. Here you can see I am transmitting an FT8 free text message in a special format with my call sign and a SOTAmate suffix. This video is a quick tutorial on how to get started. I'll have another video to show how SOTAmate works from a technical perspective. Because FT8, nor the monitoring software, nor PSK reporter were designed for this purpose, there are some important details on how messages are coded and which monitoring stations will work. But for now, we can ignore these details because the SOTAmate software isolates you from much of the complexity. Let's get started. Now, there is some one-time setup work that you have to do at home on a desktop computer before you go out into the field and activate. First, bring up your web browser and go to SOTAmate.com and find the register button in the upper left corner. For your username, make sure you use your call sign as the username. Fill in the rest of the information there and create an account. Next, go to the upper right corner and click on Preparation. That will provide some additional instructions of the three main steps that we're going to follow. The first is to click on the Regions button, where we're going to predefine and configure the regions in the SOTA program that we are able to visit and self-spot ourselves for. The reason why we have to predefine a set of regions is that our spotting will be the suffix of an FT8 message. It's only 4 characters long maximum, and we can't possibly encode every summit in the world. So instead, we are predefining just the regions that we plan to activate to reduce the possible number of combinations that we have available to us in the field. So here I'm selecting 3 or 4 different regions, and putting some notes in there. Those notes will be shown to you later. So if you don't know what W6CT stands for, you have some notes that can be shown to yourself in the mobile app. Once we have completed our regions, we go to the menu again and select the next step, which is frequencies and modes. Here we can select whether we want single sideband, FM, and so on. We select a base frequency, the lowest frequency that we plan to operate on. Here we're doing the FM national calling frequency of 146,520. Note that this is in kilohertz, not in megahertz, and that's a long story. But anyway, you defined a step size of, in this case for FM, 15 kilohertz steps for each channel. And we are saying that we are going to allow up to 4 steps in frequency, starting with that base frequency. So when we're in the field, we can select one of those 4 different FM frequencies. Next, we're going to select some 20-meter frequencies that we can select when we're in the field. This time we're using single sideband, and we've selected the lower bound of the US single sideband for general class licensees, and at 14.225. We've selected a step size of 3 kilohertz and said we want to be able to select from at least 20 different steps when we're in the field of frequency. And again, we can give ourselves some notes there. And we'll do it one more time, let's say with the 40 meter band. So we're going to select, in this case, the lower bound of the general class license band at 7.178. That includes the sideband 3 kilohertz offset. And again, we're selecting that we want to be able to choose from 20 steps in frequency. All right, there are our frequency and mode pre-configurations. And then finally, this is an optional step, we can define some commands. Commands can be, for example, to send an SMS message or to send an email, or in the future there'll be additional commands that are available to you. So we can put in the command is send an SMS, put in a telephone number, and then put in some content. For example, saying, hey, everything's okay, I'm just checking in, and then we give ourselves some notes. We could also save a different message saying, hey, I'm in trouble, please send for help. And we could send these one-way messages from FT8 through that gateway and have it send the SMS message to our target. Now, you can't change these in the field. These are all predefined messages, but you can do all sorts of things with this. Okay, with all of our commands defined, let's go to the main menu. So we're going to go up to preparation, click that. That's where we started. If we scroll to the bottom of the page beyond the instructions, it shows a summary. It shows us all of the regions that we defined, all of the summits that are in those regions. It shows all the frequencies and modes that we defined and all of the frequency steps that we have and the 2 commands. And if you multiply all that out, that results in a 35,950 possible combinations of every frequency with every summit. And that's what gets encoded into a suffix. Then we go to the configuration page, and you can see that while we're in beta, you need to get administrator permission to turn this on. And once I give that to you, if you come back to this page, it will look like this, where you copy this configuration to the clipboard on the mobile device. Next, we're going to switch to the mobile device and take this configuration and use it in the field. While you are still at home and have internet access, install the SOTAmate application on your mobile device and also an FT8 application, such as the HotPaw FT8 decoder app. We're going to launch SOTAmate, and it gives us a warning saying, hey, nothing's configured here. You can't do anything until you click the Setup tab at the bottom. So we click Setup, and we go step by step. We hit step 1. It brings us to a web browser, and click the little plus sign in the upper left. Click on Login, and we're going to log in with the account that we used before. Again, remember that the username must be your call sign. Type in our password, and we have to go through the CAPTCHA garbage, which on a tiny little screen is sometimes hard to find the bicycles. All right, once we've logged in, if we go back up and hit the preparation button, you can see that everything that we did on our desktop computer, we can do it on a mobile phone. So if you're in the field and you have internet access before going up a mountain or into the backcountry, you can do the same things we did on a desktop computer on the phone itself in a web browser. All right, the next step, step 2, is to go back and go to that configuration page, click the copy to clipboard button, and in step 3, we're going to paste what we just copied from the website into the mobile app. So we paste it into that text field there. You could see all the gobbledygook. And down at the bottom, it shows you the loaded configuration. So it should show our call sign, how many regions we defined, how many frequency steps we defined, and so on. And when you multiply out all those possible summits times all those possible frequency steps, you get 35,950 combinations. So now we click the Spot tab on the bottom, and we can select one of our predefined regions. We can select one of the summits within that region. There's 281 possible, it's telling us. We pick one of our bands and modes, and now those are the 20 possible frequency steps within that band that we predefined before. The result is that computed FT8 message, which has our call sign and our suffix. And if we click the button, it launches the HotPaw FT8 decoder app, and it preloads that app with our call sign and a suffix of Delta Yankee 0. And that Delta Yankee 0 is the encoding of the summit we selected within the region we selected, with the band we selected, with the frequency we selected. That will get transmitted, as we're seeing right now. It's transmitting right now over the KX2 radio. And the PSK reporter monitoring stations that are worldwide will hear this FT8 message. It will get relayed to the SOTAmate web server, which will look up in our database and figure out what Delta Yankee 0 for that call sign means. And then SOTAmate will spot us. Now here in the HotPaw app, you can see I turned my iPhone volume up to maximum, and I set the HotPaw app so that its volume output is at 10%, and I have my KX2 mic input level set somewhere around 6 to 10. I just look at the ALC meter to figure out how to set it right so that you only have 4 ticks on the meter. And you may need to invert your microphone and headset jacks on the KX2, your cables, because both the KX2 and the iPhone are both trying to be a host. So you need to invert the inputs and outputs to each other in this cable arrangement. And finally, you need to program your radio to be in Vox mode so that when your iPhone sends the FT8 signal, it will transmit from the radio. And in addition to Vox, you probably have to go into data mode so that you have the right bandwidth. And remember to switch back out of Vox mode and out of data mode when you go back to do your single sideband on whatever frequency you spotted yourself on. And that's it. You've self-spotted. And we've got one final trick up our sleeves. Let's exit out of the FT8 app and go back into SOTAmate. And this time click the Message tab at the bottom. And you can see we can select one of our predefined commands, our messages. And this time we selected the I'm OK message. And we can click the Launch App button at the bottom there, and it takes us back into our FT8 app. And you can see it's preloaded our call sign with a new suffix this time of Romeo Quebec Kilo. And if we send that, PSK reporter monitoring stations worldwide will pick up our message. The SOTAmate gateway will look it up in the database and figure out what that suffix means, and it will then send out a SMS text message as instructed. Of course, it's only one way. There's no way for anyone to reply to that. Well, that is SOTAmate in a nutshell. I hope to do another video showing the technology behind it, how it all works. There are a couple interesting parts to it. Hopefully you find SOTAmate useful. As of the time of this recording, it's still very, very early in the beta process. Both SOTAmate and the HotPaw FT8 app from another author are both in Apple's test flight beta program. So you need an invitation from one of us to get the apps. And you've got my email there, or you can go on to the Slack channel for SOTA North America and message me on there, or put it on the Digimodes channel of that Slack site. A couple of things as of this video are not quite working yet. Still working to connect the SOTAmate server into the official SOTA watch, so the spots don't actually go all the way. The entire process you saw works up to the last mile of actually putting the spot out. That's not working yet, but I hope to have that working soon. So let's put it all together and see it work in the real world. We're going to start out on single sideband with my headset, and I've got a special cable here where I'm going to use for my iPhone to plug in. So I unplug my headset, set that aside, bring in this special cable I built. It's just a TRRS cable, except that I've inverted the headphone and mic. As I mentioned before, both the radio and the iPhone are both trying to be a host. So normally you could just use a normal cable and you'd have to switch the microphone and earpiece jacks on the radio. But because I've made my own cable there, I don't need to switch. I can just unplug and replug. So there I launched the SOTAmate app. I selected a message, one of the predefined messages I wanted to send. It formulated that call sign and it launched the app. So now I've got the radio. I use the AB button to switch between my single sideband frequency and the FT8 frequency. I put the radio into Vox mode. I've got the mic input at around 20 right now. There it is transmitting. I'm looking at my ALC. I only had 3 bars, and I'm allowed to go up to 4 bars without causing splatter or actually engaging ALC. So I increased the volume there to mic input to 21, whereas the FT8 app is sending out at 10% maximum volume with the iPhone's volume at maximum. And so the FT8 message went out on what is, a pretty modest setup here, just a few watts on an antenna that's not very high gain at all, sitting low to the ground here with just one little counterpoise wire. And I've got Google Voice here. I'm using Google Voice virtual phone numbers here for doing my testing. So the monitoring stations have already heard the message, obviously, and they every once in a while, every 5 minutes, they wake up and send what they've heard to PSK Reporter. So it's not instantaneous. You've got all these monitoring stations, and they're not all synchronized. They're not all on the same 5-minute boundary. So, if 4 or 5 or 6 stations hear you, on average, you wait about 2 minutes for a message to get reported into PSK Reporter, and then a few seconds later, SOTAmate gets it, and a few seconds after that, it gets relayed out through the SMS system. So I'm going to cut the video here, and we're going to see what happens after 2 minutes. And 2 minutes later, there we are. We have our SMS message, one of the predefined messages sent to us by SOTAmate, because our call sign with that special suffix was heard, and it sent us the appropriate message. And of course, we could have sent that not to ourselves, but to a friend or a family member if we needed help, or just to let them know that we're okay. Well, that is SOTAmate in a nutshell. Hope to do another more technical video later. Hope to get it out of beta soon, and hope you enjoyed it. This is Alpha Bravo 6 Delta 73, and good luck.